Welcome back to Q&A Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about what makes a book controversial. We have controversial books on our menu, and I want to talk about why that's there and what makes certain books more controversial than others. The reason that we've put it there is because there are certain books that kind of sit on the fence. So here we are at 10 Boom Institute, we're trying to build character through the classics, and that means that we've got to find and apply true principles. We've got to better ourselves. We've got to learn what's of value in certain books and infuse them into our lives. And there's some books that we're unsure about that kind of seem to sit on the fence. There's a lot of books that are obviously like totally immoral, explicit, horrible language, whatever it is, and we're just not going to go there because we want to be men and women of virtue. We want to be men and women and families that have core values and that try to be a positive influence in the world, and we don't want to fill our minds with muck. I mean, we just don't want to read trash. So there's a lot of books that are just trash. We're not even going to touch those. But then there's some that, and then there's this other camp that's really good stuff. I mean, we just know Narnia is good. We just know Little House is good. It's not controversial at all. We know we want to read it. And, you know, it's not just children's books, it's adult books too. You know, there are books that are in the Great Book Set that are very controversial. There's nothing that's explicit or vulgar or immoral, but there are some very false principles that are taught in some of those books. You know, Machiavelli's The Prince. It's got a lot of false principles in it, and if you followed it, you would be a monster. And for that reason, it's kind of controversial. You know, it's on the fence. Is it going to make a person a worse person or a better person? That's really the core of it, right? Like my child really wants to read Hunger Games. If they read Hunger Games, are they going to be enriched? Are they going to be a better person? Or are they going to be a worse person? Or does it just not matter? I mean, is it just neutral enough that I don't need to worry, it's going to be okay, they'll just read that book, and then most of the time we'll be on this other side of the fence where we read all this marvelous stuff, so that just won't matter, and it means so much to them and they want to read it so badly that we're just going to let them go ahead and do that. So one major important thing that makes something controversial is that it's obvious that it's not just absolute trash, but we're not sure that it's really good. And one of the reasons why another reason why some books are really controversial is because they're 20th century literature and they're labeled classics, but you have to understand that the definition of classics has changed. It used to mean mostly that it's had the greatest impact in the world, but also that it has a positive influence on individuals. Over the 20th century, and you'll learn all about this in the video trainings, I don't have time to go into it here, but in the 20th century, we have defined, especially in the realm of the arts and in literature, we define a classic differently. We define it as books that have done something innovative or new. Now, is that innovative or new thing good, or is it bad? Well, that's what we have to find out. And so many of those books that are on the 20th century classics lists, especially at the young adult and adult levels, are controversial. You know, should people read them? And there are many especially professors that will say absolutely they're a new landmark in the history of literature, and so everyone needs to be exposed to it, and they make it a higher priority than something that will build character. Now, we need to know what's going on in the world. We can't just live with our eyes closed. That doesn't mean that we read trash, but it does mean that sometimes we engage in a controversial book so that for a handful of reasons, so that we can know what everybody's crazy about and we can speak to it. That every time somebody brings up a book that's really, really popular, we have nothing to say because we are afraid of it. Also because they become cult classics, they become very important to the culture. You know, books like 1984, that is not my favorite book to read because it's very painful, is something that has, I mean, there are certain words and phrases that people reference from that book that if you haven't read the book, you're a little bit culturally ignorant. And there's a time and place for that. You want to be old enough, and you want to be well mentored, and you want to get the most out of it. You want it to be a good experience. So controversial books are those fence sitters that we're unsure about. And every once in a while, you know, there's a lot of trash in young adult fiction that just year after year after year, and there's an article that I'll blog on soon about that speaks to that. That's fantastic. But that we're just not even going to touch. And you don't have to read trash to be culturally aware, but you have to read some of those most famous books that are making a difference. They're shaping the world around you. They're shaping the people that you're going to have to live with and your children are going to have to live with, so they're going to want to know, where's this virtue coming from? This value. Where is this belief system coming from? Why are they behaving this way? Why do they think the way that they do? Because they've read these kinds of books over and over and over again. We know what kind of people become when they just read trash, but we need to know the subtle nuances of what shapes societies when people read books that are controversial, some which are fantastic and some not so fantastic. In the near future, we're going to be blogging on Ender's Game, and this is my second time through, and I've got a handful of friends that I love and respect who are telling me that it changed their lives, and I am not getting that. But we'll tell you what we think when we're finished reading and discussing it. It is one of those books that is controversial, and some parents hate it. And they don't think their kids should ever read it, and some parents love it, and some parents say that it changed their lives, and some parents say it changed their children's lives. So that's what makes a book controversial, is when we're not sure what kind of impact it's going to have on the character, and we're not sure what kind of society it's going to create, and we're a little bit scared of it, and we're a little bit worried about its impact. Then it's got to be well mentored, and you've got to have a very wise parent who's really pondering, and when the time is right, chooses the right book and mentors it well. Or the teacher does the same thing in the environment in which they're in, and helps the student get through it and understand it, and understand why it's read, and whether or not they ever need to read it again. So I hope that you'll come to the blog often and check out the controversial books that we post there, and send me your recommendations for books that you're struggling with reading, or you're not sure you want your children to read, and or books that you've had a hard time with, and tell us why, and post that for us, and send us your questions about controversial books so that we can answer those, and we can blog on books that will be helpful to you to hear our perspective on them. Please pass this on to a friend, and like us on Facebook, and join our email list, and continue on this path to build character through the classics.